Hello, it's Debra Jason with Creative Whispers of the Heart. In this video today, I'm going to be painting bubbles. Summer is around the corner, and so that's time for playing in the pool, swimming in the ocean, or paddling on a lake. And that made me think of water and bubbles. To do this painting, I used a 12-inch piece of Nara paper. It's a circle, you can see. You'll see at the end of the video, I've done it on a 4-inch circle, a 4-inch by 6-inch piece of photo paper, and 5-inch by 7-inch. So you can choose whatever size you want. Of course, I used alcohol inks. So I have, I used aquamarine, stream, and monsoon. I also used pens. I used a Sharpie, a fine tip Sharpie. You could use a black Posca pen. I used a white gel pen. Again, if you like, you can use a white Posca pen. And to create the bubbles, I used a variety of glasses. You can use jars, different sizes. I even used this little white lid from a supplement bottle and this little kind of a shot glass or a vase. And to move the inks around, I used a Tim Holtz blowing tool. So, let's get started, shall we? First, I'm wiping off my Nara paper and pouring down 91% isopropyl alcohol, putting down some monsoon, tilting it left and right, up and down, just moving the inks around, adding a little bit more alcohol, and then I'm taking the blowing tool to move the inks around the paper some more. I'm not concerned about any particular design. I just want to move the ink, and then I'm going to add some stream. You can use whatever colors you like, but I kind of liked this color combo. As you can see, I'm just moving the stream around, tilting the paper, adding some more alcohol, and continuing to blow with the blowing tool, spreading the ink around the circle. Tilting the paper a little bit to get the ink to move some more. Up and down, left and right. Blowing some more, just trying to get that ink to spread around the whole circle. Next, I'm going to add some aquamarine. I want to cover the circle with these 3 colors before I actually start creating the bubbles. So you can see I pour down some alcohol, some ink, and then I blow with my blowing tool to spread the inks around. Now I'm adding some more aquamarine, I think, or maybe that was stream, just to fill the paper. And then I am going to turn the circle around, add some more monsoon, and then I will have the complete circle covered with inks. Just blowing short little bursts with the blowing tool. And here's how it's looking before I start to add the bubbles. Now that I've covered the paper with all the ink, I'm laying down some alcohol and putting a glass on top of it. Then I'm taking a blow dryer. It's a 500-watt blow dryer, and blowing around that glass. You can sort of see the ink moving around there. Just going around and around the glass. I did forget to say earlier that one of the tools I use is a 500-watt blow dryer. It's not as strong as your typical blow dryer for drying your hair. But now, once I lift the glass, you can see it's still wet under there, so I move the inks around and I'm drying it with the blow dryer to fill that particular bubble with the ink. Putting down the glass again, pouring some alcohol underneath it, and going back with my blow dryer to move the ink, that's actually the alcohol that's inside the glass, which reactivates the ink, and it creates the border of the bubble. Then once I lift the glass, I take the blow dryer and move that ink around to fill the entire bubble. This one formed like a little wave in there, and you can see later in the video what I did with that. Now I'm using a slightly smaller glass. As you can tell, the process is a bit repetitive. You can use whichever size glass or jar or bottle that you want to use. As you see, when I move forward, I'm going to be using different sizes here and there. This is a repetitive process, and I have sped up this video in places because I do want to make sure that you watch the whole video. Now I go back with a slightly larger glass, and I want my bubbles to overlap in some places. So this one is overlapping slightly with the one that's to the left. I think you can see right there how the ink is moving around again. And now just drying it, going around and around with the blow dryer. Now that that one's all dry, you can see here's how it's coming along. Now I'm going to take that white lid from a vitamin supplement bottle. It's not as heavy as glass, so I do have to make sure I hold the lid down as I move the blow dryer around it. I am overlapping that lid on top of these two other circles. And then, as before, I'll lift the lid and blow the ink that's inside there and dry it. Moving the little white supplement lid to the other side of the circle to create a smaller bubble over there. Whichever size lids or bottles or glasses you use, you can just plan whether you want one to overlap another or just place them next to each other. I find it's kind of fun to overlap them here and there because when you see bubbles in the water, they overlap. Finished drying that, and now I'm going to take this smaller glass. I wasn't sure if it was a shot glass or a little vase that I had. It's slightly smaller circle than the other bubbles, and you can see pretty well there how the ink is moving around. And then I blow it as before with the blow dryer. I just repeat, rinse and repeat the process to create the circles. I'm touching up that one there. The line was a little dark, so I put some alcohol on a cotton swab, and here's how it's coming along. I've got 7 circles, and I decided I needed another one. So I added another circle up there, one that's overlapping and kind of off the edge of the paper. I didn't want the full circle. I wanted it to go off the edge of the Nara paper. Now I'm getting ready to actually create the bubbles. I know you think they were created, but I'm taking this gel pen and I'm creating the borders of the circles by just going around, see right there? Going around the glass with the gel pen, touching that up over there and over there to create what I'm calling the border of the bubble. You can use a white gel pen, you can use a white Posca pen if you have one. There you go, see, just creating the borders of the bubbles, going around each one with the gel pen. See there, taking the little supplement lid and going around that. And here is all the circles, or are all the circles. Now I'm taking the gel pen and creating what looks like the refraction of light. See that little line there? That's where the sun might be hitting the bubble in the water. Adding a little dot. Sometimes I find the bubbles have different patterns. See, there it goes. I look at what's in the bubble, like that line right there. See? I'm not always going to do a little line like that one. Sometimes I add little dots. And sometimes I just go where the shapes are calling me. Right there, it seemed like that's where the light would be hitting the bubble under the water. Going around that and there, a couple of lines in that particular bubble. And here I'm just following the shape that's in that bubble, just deciding to go around it with the pen. Simply go around each circle, each bubble, and see where you think the light would be refracting and use your white pen. Right there, and then another line there. And here's that little wave. It looked like a wave, so I just highlighted the wave and then I added some lines there. I think the light is right there in the bubble. In some cases, like here, I like to add little dots. Just go around the circle or your sheet of paper and go around the bubbles, adding in the white lines that are refractions of light within the bubble. So I just keep going around and around. It's always hard to sometimes know when to stop. But here's how it's looking. But I'm not done. I decide I need to highlight them a bit more, so I'm taking a Sharpie. And basically I'm doing the same thing that I did with the white gel pen initially, which is I'm taking the glass or here the bottle cap and going around it to create a black border. Sometimes it's on top of the white border, other times it's right next to the border. I find it just makes the bubbles stand out a little bit more. By the way, this is a fine tip Sharpie that I'm using and going around the glass with the Sharpie. So that I highlight each of those bubbles and make them stand out a little bit more. Going around that glass. Even when I have the glass there, my hand is not always that steady, but I do the best that I can. And here's how it's looking. See the little fine black lines in there? Finishing it up with a couple more bubbles that need some highlights around them. So I'm going to speed it up right here so that we can move a little bit quicker. So now I have all my bubbles almost done, finishing it right there. And here's how it looks. This is the 8-inch version. And then I did one that's 4 inches. And here's one that's 4 inches by 6 inches. And one that's 5 by 7 inches. Thanks a million for watching. I hope you'll give this technique a try. Don't forget to visit creativewhispersoftheheart.com and join the Alcohol Ink. Art Society for more videos like this one.